Lesson 813, Transformation Golf, Sequences of Transformations. In this lesson, you'll decide which type of transformation will work to move one figure to another. Before watching this recording or continuing with this recording, go back and complete as much of the online Desmos activity as you can. Instead of jumping right into the notes right now, I think it might be helpful to show you how some of the tools in the Desmos activity work. This is the first slide in the Desmos activity for today. So I just want to show you and get you used to what you're being asked to do. You're being asked to move the shaded figure onto the open figure. And you have these three options that we've been talking about: translating, rotating, and reflecting. So I just want to show you how each of these tools work. For translating, you can go diagonally. Normally you would go horizontally and vertically, but take one end of the translation arrow and put it on some spot from the original figure. We're going to be calling this the pre-image soon. And then for the other end of the arrow, lock it onto the same spot on the new image over here. And that will translate the figure. I just want to show you how these other tools work, even though I really don't need them for this slide. For rotating, there's a few things you're going to need. First of all, we have this center of rotation, and you can place it anywhere you want. Secondly, you can make things go clockwise. You can see the arrow over here is going opposite of a clock's motion, or you can set it to clockwise, where it'll rotate in the other direction. And the third thing is the angle that you want to rotate it. You can rotate it any number of degrees. I'm going to set this to 180. So it should make a half turn. So it's going to take this figure, pivot, and imagine that you've got transparent paper, and you're going to pivot it right here, like you're putting your pencil down to rotate. I'm going to try it just to show you that rotation. And then finally, let me show you how reflections work. For reflections, you're given a line that's going to act as your line of reflection that gets flipped over. So if I have this horizontal line, then my figure will flip to the other side of that line. Or if I have a vertical line, it'll flip to the other side of that vertical line. Or I can make that line anything I want. It could be a slanted line if you like. It's a little wonky, but that's how the reflections work. So I just wanted to show you those three options as you move through this Desmos activity. Once you're finished with it, come on back to the notes. All right, let's move on along here. For lesson 3, you should be on page 8 for these notes. And our learning goal is to decide which type of transformation will work to move one figure to another. Sometimes you need a sequence of transformations. That just means sometimes you need more than one. To transform a pre-image onto an image. Now, those are two new words. Pre-image is where the figure starts. We're going to say this is our pre-image. So that's before we move it. What the word pre is for, before. And then we have what they're calling an image. That's what we have after the movement, after that sequence of transformations. So if I say pre-image and image, pre-image is where I start and the image is where we finish. So I'm going to need more than one transformation for this. It's going to be hard to just do a rotation or just do a translation. So there's a couple of movements that we're going to make. Let's take a look. So we have this pre-image, and we're told it's translated to the right 5 units. So I'm going to take this point right here and drag all the other points with it and move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. I'm going to finish up here. And that's going to bring my L shape right over here. I went one too far, sorry. So there's my L shape now. But then I'm going to do one more thing. Now that my L shape is in this space right here, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, that's a quarter turn, clockwise, that's in this direction, and it's going to be pivoting on the bottom left corner. So imagine if I had that L shape. Oops. And I wanted to pivot it on this bottom left corner, and I just made it a quarter turn, it would land right on top of that blue shape that we had. So there were a series of, or a sequence of transformations that we had to follow in order to get the pre-image, that's the pink one, to the image. That's where we finished up. So let's do some describing here. We're asked to draw or describe a series of just reflections. All we're going to do are some reflections. We need to get some highlighters to help us see this. And we're going to transform the shaded pre-image, this is what we're calling our before, or pre-image, onto the unshaded image. That blue is going to be our after image. We don't say after image, we just say image. That's where we finish. So I can't do this in just one reflection. So first, I'm going to reflect it across this green horizontal line. I'm going to take the pink and reflect it across the green horizontal line. And I'm going to use some transition words to make my movements, make my steps clear. First, reflect across the green horizontal line. If you don't have highlighters, you can just draw it where I drew it and just call it the horizontal line that you drew. It's our line of reflection. So first indicates that there's more coming. I'm going to say then, well, let me back up here. Let me show you where this pre-image would land when I reflect it across here. See if I can draw it right this time. Okay, so imagine my little L shape down here now, because I picked up my transparent paper and I flipped it over that green line. And next, I'm going to have a vertical line. I'm going to draw it in orange here. And if I were to flip across this vertical line, I would land right on top of that image that they had drawn for me. I just showed that I flipped it over there. So next, or I'm going to say then. Then reflect across the orange vertical line. So that's a sequence of transformations, a sequence of reflections, or a series of reflections. I had to do more than one. This next example, we've got our pre-image right here. That's before we make any moves. And our image over on this little L. We're asked to describe a series of rotations this time. Now, you learned in the activity, if you went through it, that you don't always need, well, I should back up. You learned in the activity that there's more than one way to get this figure to over here. And I'm going to say I can do this in just one rotation. So let's just do it in one rotation. Let's just do one. I could do it in a series. All right. It looks like it was a 180 degree turn right about here. So I'm going to make just a green point here. If I was on a coordinate plane, it'd be easier to identify that, but I'm going to mark it green so I can refer to it. And I'm going to say rotate the pre-image, that's the pink one. And for rotation, I have to say three things. I have to say how many degrees I'm moving. 180 degrees. When it's 180 degrees, you really don't have to say whether it's clockwise or counterclockwise because it ends up in the same place. But just for a good measure, I'll go ahead and identify the direction. And then I'll identify this center of rotation. I probably could have done this another way or used 2 rotations instead of 1, but why would I do that? It's a terrible L. Let me try that. I just want to demonstrate for you that that will in fact work. So here's our L shape. And if I rotate it about that green point, some things in the way of my paper here, it should land right on top of that blue one. Sorry, I didn't realize I was off screen there. It should rotate right onto that blue one. For our summary question, you're asked to draw an image that you can't create with just one transformation. With this rotation, I just did one rotation and I was done. But sometimes you can't do that. So I'm going to draw an image that I can't create with just one transformation. So let me grab my pen here. I'm going to imagine that I'm going to reflect it and then translate it a little bit. So let's see, where can I do this here? All right, so here's my pre-image. And here's my image. And I have to reflect it. If I had this on transparent paper, I would have to pick up the paper and physically flip it over. But my Tinkerbell ruler again. If I were to flip it over this orange line, then my L shape would land a little bit too high to sit on top of this blue. So I would have to start with a reflection and then a translation. I couldn't do it in just one move. Oops. Didn't put a space there. I need 2 transformations. I need a reflection over that orange line, and I need a translation. In this case, it would be about 2 units down. So sequences or series of transformations is what we're moving on to now. It's getting a little bit harder. And when you have multiple steps, do try to use transition words like first, second, or first, next, or first, then. You should be able to tackle the homework at this point. Have fun.